Welcome to Tech News of the Week with your host, Fart Noises.
Welcome to Tech News of the Week. This is our weekly tech news podcast where Chris and I inspect for interesting articles that have come across our desk. In case you're wondering, we are not going to be covering the CrowdStrike debacle that is currently unfolding as we record this because it's too soon. It's too soon, Chris. We don't have all the information. So instead, we're going to cover some stuff that happened in the previous week. We'll get to CrowdStrike when there's actually something to talk about. Let's kick it off. AT&T believes that sharing is in fact caring, and so they've decided to share all of your data with hackers. Isn't that nice?
Aww.
On Friday, July 12th, AT&T announced that they would be notifying their users about a data breach. The fact that this little news bomb got dropped on a Friday is particularly ominous. That's where you go to bury things. How many users? 100 million. Basically all of AT&T's customers. What kind of data? Just like everyone's phone number, call history, and text history for a 6-month period in 2022. No big deal. If both of your eyebrows just raised so high that they are comically 12 inches above your head, you are not alone. How did such a massive exfiltration of data occur? It wasn't due to a compromised system in AT&T, rather it was their trove of customer data sitting in Snowflake. For those unfamiliar, Snowflake offers data warehouse, data lake, and analytics as a service. With thousands of companies housing their data in Snowflake, it makes them a ripe target for hacking. As such, you would think that Snowflake would enforce strict security protocols, or at least moderate security controls for their accounts, and sadly, that does not appear to be the case. User accounts in Snowflake do not need to have two-factor authentication enabled. As a direct result of that policy, over 165 Snowflake customers have had a significant volume of data pilfered, according to a report from Mandiant. It would appear AT&T is among those 165 customers. The kind of good news is that the data filched from AT&T does not include the contents of the calls or the text messages or the time and date of the calls and messages. But it does include metadata, including in some cases the cell site information of the calls and texts. Why in the hell AT&T had this customer data cache in the first place and why they didn't enforce MFA in the second place remain open questions, but I suspect the answers are because we can and because we don't care, respectively.
SAP AI product and the environment it's running on breached.
Yay!
Once upon a time, SAP, like every other company this side of literally everywhere, decided they needed to do an AI. They put on their robe and wizard hat. Oh, wait, shit. Sorry. That's the wrong story.
Okay.
Anyway, SAP AI Core was introduced to, quote, handle the execution and operations of your AI assets and, quote, provide seamless integration with your SAP solutions, double unquote. Apparently, what it wasn't designed to provide was security. Cloud security company Wiz released a report this week dealing with the myriad ways that SAP security failed. In short, Wiz found that by executing arbitrary code within AI Core, as in talking to the AI itself, they were able to move laterally and, quote, take over the service, gaining access to customer private files and credentials. So this is clearly an AI model fail, right?
Yeah.
At this point, we've got the basics. No guardrails on inputs, too much back-end access, no auditing of unusual behavior, etc., etc. But wait, there's more. They got inside the Kubernetes environment.
Ooh.
Inside of the Kubernetes environment, they were able to spoof an Istio user using a sidecar, which is a thing apparently, and scan the internal network, which you're not supposed to be able to do. Grafana Loki was installed in the cluster, and when Wiz queried it, Loki just gave up all its configuration information, including secret access keys.
Ooh.
It goes on from there. I encourage you to read this article. It's actually quite well written and quite entertaining, even if you are not an AI or Kubernetes expert. Bonus fun fact, though, the environment was running something called Tiller, which is the Helm version 2 tool that was deprecated back in 2020.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about Kubernetes to know how fun this fun fact is, but I'm guessing very.
Yeah, there's a reason they retired it. Markdown in Google Docs. At least 2 people are thrilled. The 2 people being Kevin Purdy, the Ars Technica author whose post brought this to my attention, and of course, me. Markdown is a markup language commonly used in technical documentation. If you've ever filed an issue on GitHub, you've probably used it. In many ways, Markdown was meant to get away from the bloat and formatting obtuseness that currently infests modern word processors. If you've ever spent 2 hours trying to get Word to just get the fucking tab stops right or stop formatting new lines in Comic Sans 9 point, you know what I mean. I started using Markdown heavily in 2019 when working part-time as a technical writer. The documentation I was writing was stored in GitHub and published through a static site generator called Hugo, which uses Markdown for content. I went on to write 2 study guides entirely in Markdown, and my personal blog also uses Markdown. I love Markdown, but you know who doesn't? Google Docs. Copying and pasting Markdown into Google Docs is a fraught nightmare, and even the best plugins do a mediocre job at best. And that's why I was chuffed to hear that true native Markdown support is coming to Google Docs this month. Finally, I'll be released from the tyranny of remembering weird keyboard shortcuts and trying to determine why my numbered list is now starting at 4. Real examples. Happy days for me and the 4 other weirdos who have been asking for this for years.
NVIDIA open sourcing kernel modules.
What?
Exactly. Historically, NVIDIA has been known for 2 things. 1, accidentally allowing crypto to become a thing. And 2, despising Linux, open source, and the horse that they both rode in on. It seems that now they're changing their tune on that last one a little bit, since we've gotten to that other thing that NVIDIA is going to be known for going forward. It's AI.
Oh.
It's AI, you guys.
Okay.
There are a few reasons that NVIDIA never open sourced their driver modules before. First, and most hilariously, they were guilty of pulling that famous trick of capitalism. Sell the exact same hardware to 2 separate audiences, and only allow that hardware to work at 100% if you were in the audience that paid more money. Well, if you were able to say, rewrite the driver, you could pay less money and have 100% of the card.
How dare you?
This upset the NVIDIA, and they closed all the sources, and using NVIDIA on Linux became the nightmare we all know and know. These days, though, using the multi-use card upsell thing is not really a thing anymore. So it seems that NVIDIA thinks it's safe to let the unwashed masses see the code and, God forbid, maybe even help make it work in Linux for something not involving a freaking blockchain. Now, it's important to note that not everything in NVIDIA land is open sourced. The firmware on their cards and the user space libraries that make things go are enthusiastically remaining closed source. Still, this is an interesting step in the right direction and one that I was completely not expecting. Bonus snark. One commenter was less than enthusiastic about this move, saying, and I quote, "Throwing the tarball over the wall and saying fetch is meaningless to me. Until they actually contribute a driver to the upstream kernel, I'll be buying AMD." Hell yeah. Tell him, Steve Dave.
It's going to make a real big difference. All right, that's it. We're done now. Go away. Bye.